Hi Tarot Tribe, it's Ethany and welcome to part 1 of my Tarot for Beginners mini free video series here on YouTube and over at ethany.com. So today we are looking at what is the difference between tarot and oracle decks. So that's a very interesting place to start because I wanted to make sure we covered what deck you're actually working with before we start digging into other aspects of the tarot. Now, before I begin, as with everything I share, take what resonates with you and simply leave the rest. So I invite you to get a favorite cup of tea and join me as I talk a little bit about the way I view the differences between tarot and oracle decks. Cheers. Now, I've had many tarot students and clients over the years look a little surprised when they find out that there is actually a difference between tarot and oracle decks. Some people work with a set of cards for a while before they realize what set they're actually working with, especially when it comes to oracle decks. I've had a few students work with oracle decks and not realize that it's not tarot. They've been referring to it as tarot. So we're going to look at that. Not all cartomancy systems are the same. Cartomancy, by the way, for those of you who are new to that word, is any system of divination or intuitive work with a set of cards. And if you haven't already, if you want to know a few insider things, like talking about cartomancy and some things to avoid and some lessons that I've learned as a reader, go and take my tarot personality quiz over at ethany.com because you get a whole education, little tarot education email from me as well if you do that. So not all of these systems are the same, but it doesn't mean that one is better than any of the others. It is down to personal preference, like a lot of things. Now, I prefer tarot. I love the tarot. If I was to choose one, I would choose tarot. But I also work with oracle decks and Lenormand as well. And I have found that each system requires different techniques or different ways of interacting with them to read with them. So I find that one, even though I use my intuition for all of them, there are different things that I've learnt or had to require to learn to read each system. To be good at anything, be it sport, sewing, cooking, or being an amazing card slinger, it is going to take time and practice to get comfortable with your tools and stretch your abilities. So now we're going to look at some key indicators of each of these cartomancy systems so you can identify which one you are looking at when you see them out in the wild. Which I mean your favorite bookshop or your favorite witchy bookshop. So let's look at the tarot as the first one. So the number of cards in the traditional tarot deck, so I've got a couple of, oh my gosh, seriously guys, it is like the leaning tower of tarot here. If I don't drop anything, it's going to be a miracle. So traditionally there are 78 cards in a tarot deck. Some newer systems have added cards, usually it's a couple, and some have actually removed cards from the deck. But more traditional decks will be 78 cards. So that's the number of cards that are in the deck. Now the structure is the second thing you're going to find is very specifically thought out and unique to the tarot. So there are 3 main parts of the structure for tarot. And again, this is how I break it down. The first one, so this is the Druidcraft Tarot. The first one is the Major Arcana. Okay. So this is where we start looking at spiritual lessons, collective consciousness energies, archetypes, etc. Then we have the Minor Arcana cards, which is everyday divinity and lessons. So I see this very much as we bring these big energies of the major arcana down into our everyday life. And we're able to really see spirituality in practice in our everyday lives. And it kind of also are like our mundane tests on our spiritual path. And then we have the court cards, okay, the people and personalities in the tarot. On top of that, those three very basic structural breakdowns of the tarot, we also have numbered structures within them. So the major arcana goes from 0, if you believe it to be 0, if you believe the Fool to be inside that structure, all the way up to the 21st card, which is the World. So there is a numbered structure there. So you'll find when you work with the major arcana, you're working with also a numbered structure within it. There is also the structure of the minor arcana cards, which start at the Ace and end at the 10. And then we have the court card, which start with the pages in this deck. It's the princesses, and then we finish with the kings of each suit. So we have the structure of the 3, and then the numbered structure within the 3. And then the third part of the structure that I believe plays a big part of the tarot, is the story within each one. So there's also a progressive story or a progressive build of energy within each structure of the tarot. In the major arcana, we have the Fool's Journey. This is just one example of this. The Fool, seen as either the beginning of the major arcana or even outside of it because it is numbered 0, starts their journey and they meet each member of the major arcana. You know, so when they go to the third, this number 2, but the third card, the High Priestess, and then they'll move on to the Lady. You know, so they go from you can look at this as like the spiritual plane to the Mother, and then the Father. And so there is, every time the major arcana moves up one, there is a addition to this Fool's bag of information, their energetic imprint, their understanding of themselves and their place in the universe. So it's a very deep addition to the story and the structure and the energy of the cards. Then when we look at the minor arcana, it's the same thing. We start off with aces, which are all about potential and the raw potential of the suit. And then we move right up to the 10s, which are like the maximum capacity of that suit. And along the way, each one of those signposts from ace to 10 has added something to it. It focuses it on a certain thing. And then we have the court cards, which has starts usually at the pages or the princesses, which is the entry point to the court, by the way. So if we look at medieval court, pages were the messengers. They took care of the knights, they took care of the horses, they did all the armor and all that kind of stuff. So they were the entry to the court, and then we had the kings, who were the leaders of the court. So every time we're adding more energy, more influence, more understanding, and more challenge as we move forward. I even have stories for each of the minor arcana suits: pentacles, swords, wands, and cups. Of course that was going to happen. And I share that with my students in my training over at the Tarot's Academy. So there's even a specific story for each one of those as well. So we could literally talk, or I could talk all day about the tarot court, or about the Fool's Journey, about the elements in the suits, or about the structure of the tarot, but we're just giving you an idea as I'm going to dig deeper into some of these areas later on in the series. Now, the second identifier with knowing whether you're working with a tarot deck or an oracle deck is flexible uniformity across the system. So there are more than one tarot systems that are out there and that are extremely popular with readers. which can add another layer of confusion. Do know that I am going to cover this in a different blog post and video, but for now, know that when you pick up a tarot deck, when you pick up, a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, or you pick up a tarot deck from your bookshelf or your favorite witchy shop, know that you are going to be able to find similar meanings given in the material you get either with the deck or material you find online or in books. So for example, I picked a couple of books to show you what I mean. So this is the new tarot handbook by Rachel Pollack, who is a legend in the tarot community, and I hope to meet her one day, and I really hope I don't fangirl too hard. I'm probably gonna lose my shit. So we have the moon, okay, and we've got the moon, and some keywords here are instinct, intuition, lunacy, and mystery, and she writes an awful lot about that in there. So we've got those keywords, and then we have, this is the kitchen table tarot by my friend Melissa, and we have the moon here. So and these are based on the Rider-Waite-Smith, so of course you're going to find some similarities there. So flexible uniformity, it's not exactly the same, but we see a lot of the same elements in those cards. And then we have here illumination, nervousness, weariness, intuition. So we've got a lot of the same information, but these two authors have got a very unique way of looking at it. That's probably with their experience, how they interact with the energy, their experiences with maybe moon magic or not, or how they're taking the tarot and applying it to their clients in their life. So that's flexible uniformity. It's not exactly the same, but you'll find that when you pick up different literature or you find different information, there's going to be some overlap or some similarities within them. There will also be, as I said, when we talk about the different systems, it'll get a little easier, but any Rider-Waite-Smith based inspired deck, there are going to be similarities to the artwork as well, as I mentioned before. What's great about that is that the information that you find about the tarot can be applied to many other decks. So you can read a number of books and just keep deepening the well of tarot goodness that you already know and apply it, or whatever resonates with you, and apply it to another deck. The last indicator I wanted to offer to you is additional esoteric systems. So there are other school systems and traditions weaved into the tarot depending on the deck. Now these include astrology, numerology, Kabbalah, and deep symbolism, to name a few. There are a ton. You will find that there is a deck that has got just about anything in it. You can even find a deck that's got Pokemon and all sorts of stuff. And hey, that might be your esoteric system if you work with that. While it's also true for many other types of cartomancy that reflect also astrology, numerology, etc., those systems are often used as a theme of the deck in other cards and not the overall structure. In the tarot is the bones of the actual system. It is the cement, it is the foundation. And yes, I recognize that a lot of occult references and influences come into the tarot. I'm going to talk about that when we talk about different tarot systems. But you'll find that these things all work together quite well, but they're not the overall or the only system that's in it. So now that I've covered some of the ways that you can find it, see whether you're working with a tarot deck, let's talk about oracle decks. So key indicators for your oracle decks. Oracle deck number of cards, it can absolutely vary. You can have an oracle deck that's got 20 cards. You can have an oracle deck that has over 100. It is really up to the deck creator. So the number of cards will vary from creator to creator. Second part, structure. So there is no uniform structure in comparison to tarot or Lenormand systems. Many oracle decks will number their cards. This one is in alphabetical order. This is the Vintage Wisdom one. Actually, both decks that I've picked out to show you have got no numbers, but a lot of them do have numbers, so it's easier for you to find information in the guidebook. But it's rarely about a numbered system. It's rarely about an accumulation of energy or information like the tarot is. There are oracle decks with built-in structure, but this varies from deck to deck. So for example, this deck, which is one of my favorites and one of my first, I think it was my first oracle deck, the Angels, Gods and Goddesses by Tony Carmen Solero. This is an old cover. Has a structure where there are angels. There's a group of angels in the cards. I keep getting all the angels. There are a group of gods and there are a group of goddesses, and that's the structure of this deck. But that's it. That's the only other structure that's present in that oracle deck. And then the third one, there is complete individuality across the systems. Oracle decks stand alone. They are completely individual pieces of work. No two decks are the same, as the creators have complete free reign to do whatever they want with their deck. This is reflected in the written materials that accompany accompany oracle decks. So you're not going to find any uniformity. If I can't read the Vintage Wisdom oracle deck with this guidebook for the Angels, Gods and Goddesses, because it's got nothing to do with each other. I mean, I could try. I probably wouldn't get very far, but I could try. So this is going to really reflect the written materials that accompany an oracle deck. Each book is going to be different. Whereas you can find, as I mentioned before, more of a collective content in tarot books and written materials. Okay, and then we finally have the last one, which is Lenormand. So I've just got my Prince Lenormand Oracle deck to show you and give you an example of this. So the number of cards in a Lenormand deck are traditionally 38 cards. Okay, so there's 38 of these cards. Oh, it's upside down. 38 cards in a Lenormand deck. Some decks have added more cards. I only added... Actually, I didn't add anything in mine. I just gave variations. So there are 2 women cards. There are 2 men cards. Actually, no, I added a wild card. Then there is the being card as well. So I've added options. I haven't added anything that is outside of the Lenormand structure. But most Lenormand decks have 38 cards in them. The structure of the Lenormand is based on playing cards. So as you can see here, so along with the numbered and symbolic structure that the deck has, each card has a counterpart from a playing card. Now, not every playing card is shown or is represented in a Lenormand deck because there are not 56 cards. But as you can see, that we've got the Ace of Diamonds, the 6 of Spades, the 9 of Clubs, and this is again uniform structure between each Lenormand, the 7 of Hearts, and the numbering of these cards are also the same. Each Lenormand card also holds the same hierarchy and importance when you are reading them. So unlike the tarot, where we have a increase in energy, every card in the Lenormand system holds the same importance when reading it. The power in the Lenormand is how each card interacts with each other in a reading. They are brilliant. These are real combinations, and how far away from each other in a reading they're sitting, if they're facing each other, if they're in opposition, if it's crowning or underneath or on the right or the left. So position and play takes a huge amount of influence in a reading for Lenormand. And Lenormand cards are brilliant for pinpointing timing in a reading. So for people who are looking for very specific, very pinpointed timing, Lenormand is a great system. The deck is read face up only, no reversals, whereas reversals are something you can personally put into tarot or oracle readings. And this is also reflected in the written materials that support the deck. The Arcanic Grand Tableau, which is a type of reading, is designed specifically for the Lenormand cards, and it can be done with other systems, but it has been created for the Lenormand system. So with the uniformity with this system, it's mostly uniform. The Lenormand has a set meaning list for each of the cards, so written materials will be able to be used across a number of decks. So you can study a book, say, for example, the great Rana George, you can read her book, which I have in my bookcase, and that information can be used alongside any of the different card sets that you buy for Lenormand. Like tarot, there are many other themes that may be inside a deck, like, we have the fairy tale Lenormand, which holds the structure, the meaning, and everything else of the Lenormand, but has images of fairy tales. So those are the big sort of indicators when it comes to looking at the anatomy of what deck you're kind of working with. So some tips to identifying your deck. It can be tricky. I do want to recognize that, because we do have decks that are out there that use the word tarot, for instance, when in fact it is more of an oracle deck. But also do know that I am a part of the tarot community and the oracle card community, have been for many years, and there are still conversations and discussions around what makes tarot tarot and what makes oracle, etc. This is my interpretation and my offering to you. I wouldn't call something a tarot deck unless it fulfilled those things that I talked about before as indicators. So here are some helpful tips for you if you're out looking at getting a new deck or you want to start learning to read the tarot. Look at the title of the deck you're perusing. So most Lenormand decks will say it in the title. Ta-da! Likewise, most oracle decks, let's see if this one does. Yeah, most oracle decks will say it in the title as well. So they are going to give you a bit of a key indicator. And like I said, I have come across decks that have said one thing and I have not agreed with it, but I'm not like the tarot god, but for me, it's not a tarot deck. The second thing you can look at is the number of cards in the deck. If you're looking at a deck with 78 cards, you're most likely looking at a tarot deck. And if you can look through the deck and give it a flip through to see if you can identify any major Arcana cards, court cards, or other familiar indicators for a specific deck, that's also really helpful. So there you have it, the difference between tarot and oracle decks. I hope you found this helpful. I would love to hear your thoughts on what the differences are and if you feel similarly to myself or if you disagree and why. And I will see you for part 2 of my Tarot for Beginners series soon.